Hey there, this is Natalie, and welcome to another compilation of Mushoku Tensei stories to fall asleep to. The stories in this video are associated with Mushoku Tensei Volume 2, which is where Rudeus goes to tutor Eris. So there are no spoilers in any of these stories if you're anime only, because they all relate to things that happened early in Season 1 of the anime. These are short side stories by the author Rifujin Namaganote who wrote Mushoku Tensei, but they're all stories that are exclusive to Japanese and Taiwanese media, so we'll never have an official English release. I'm using English translations by Lucius Seneca, who you can follow on X for English and Spanish translations of all kinds of obscure Mushoku Tensei stories. Remember, you can get clean audiobook style readings of all of these stories and many more by visiting my Ko-fi or Patreon pages. You don't have to donate anything to download them, they're available to everyone, but obviously I really do appreciate it if you can afford it and want to help support me. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you want more of these videos to fall asleep to, and more anime analysis type videos relating to Mushoku Tensei, Re:Zero, and other great light novel series. Also, let me know down in the comments if you're enjoying these story compilations to fall asleep to. It's a new format of video that I'm trying on the channel, so any feedback is appreciated. And now, if you're nice and relaxed, it's time for some bedtime stories. Interview with the new tutor. Mushoku Tensei Volume 2, original short story. Translated by Lucius Seneca. I would like to present my resignation. Upon hearing those words, I thought to myself, again? Do as you please. My response was the same as always, though it was laced with a sigh. It was likely because I had hoped this time would be different. Then, please excuse me. With that, the man left the office. It was a quick exit. As he departed, he gave me a look of pity. Though he was the one losing his job, he pitied me. I leaned on my desk and sighed again. As I looked up at the ceiling, I noticed a spider clinging to the wall near the top. A small spider. The founder of the Boreas family was said to have a very short temper. In those days, if even a single insect was found inside the house, he would call in the maid responsible for cleaning, whip her, and sometimes even behead her. Back then, the nobility would whisper, "Never send your daughter to serve that family." This all changed thanks to one of the later heads of the family. He staffed all the maids with beast folk. It started with one maid. She was a slave taken from the Great Forest. Recognised by the head of the family at the market, she became a maid. She wasn't particularly skilled, often making simple mistakes that angered the head. However, while he would scold her, he never resorted to whipping or beheading. Why? Because whenever he saw her beast ears trembling in fear from his scolding, his anger would inexplicably dissipate. Whether that story is true or not, from his tenure onward, there are no records of the Boreas family heads subjecting maids to unreasonable punishment. So, it must be true. I am not quick to anger, a rarity for the Boreas family. Of course, I do like beast folk. "Dear, Philip, Philip!" A voice called out, and I lowered my gaze from the ceiling. There stood my beloved wife, Hilda. Naturally, she is not a beast folk. Azura nobles, especially high-ranking ones like us, are strict about bloodlines. We're only allowed to marry fellow pure-blooded Azura nobles, but that doesn't mean I don't love her. My fondness for beast folk and my love for my wife are separate matters. "Ah, Hilda, what's the matter?" "The one who just left. Was it by any chance?" "That was Eris's tutor. He was quite renowned in the royal capital, so I thought he might manage." "I see." Hilda's expression clouded. I am not quick to anger. However, our daughter, Eris, inherited the Boreas family's temper in full measure. She was extremely quick-tempered, refused to listen to others, and had a poor memory. There were even disgraceful rumours calling her the Red Ape of the Boreas. Although I crushed the noble who started those rumours, the gossip itself did not disappear, as it wasn't entirely unfounded. Eris's education has been a constant struggle. When we sent her to school, she knocked out all her classmates' teeth within a few days. When we hired private tutors, she either knocked out their teeth within a few days, or, when that didn't work, drove them away with relentless harassment and boycotts, even attacking them at night. What Eris truly needed was an adult to discipline her. Both Hilda and I initially tried to scold her, believing it was necessary, but Father defended Eris. "Upper-class Azra nobles should be strong-willed and must have this level of spirit," he said. There was some truth to that, so I couldn't strongly oppose it. Thus, I also bear some responsibility. There were times when I thought I should have insisted on punishing Eris more severely, even against Father's objections. Frankly, when I think about Eris's future, I'm left with nothing but anxiety. "Honey, do you think Eris will be okay? She's almost 6 and still doesn't know how to properly greet people." Hilda often came to me with such concerns. That's true. If she continued growing up this way, she might become a woman who couldn't even be called a noble, unable to attend social gatherings, unable to perform official duties, ignorant, arrogant, and on top of that, a violent person who would punch anyone she didn't like. As her parent and a member of the Boreas family, I wanted to avoid that at all costs. But what should we do? "Master, may I have a moment?" I suddenly noticed another figure at the entrance of the office. "Thomas, what is it?" "Well, it's about..." The butler's report made me frown. In front of me sat a woman. Among the beast folk, she had somewhat rare dark brown skin. Though female, she had almost no body fat and was lean. However, her trained muscles were still evident. With proper meals, she would quickly regain a robust physique. One eye was covered with an eye patch, and at her waist hung a single-edged sword, typical of sword god-style practitioners. Moreover, the jacket she wore was that of a sword saint of the sword god style. Her grey fur didn't look well groomed, lacking lustre. She seemed like someone who needed a bath and a day's worth of brushing. "So you were saved by Eris, right?" The beastfolk woman Eris had brought home after a day out by the river with my father was sitting before me. Apparently, she'd been on the verge of starvation, and Eris had saved her by giving her lunch. "Yes, and in return I offered to teach her the sword." "I see." This woman's name was Ghislaine. According to my research, she's an S-rank adventurer and a highly skilled swordswoman holding the title of Sword King. Why such a person was found collapsed in the Fitua region is unclear, but her gaze was exceedingly threatening. It was the kind of look that seemed ready to bite off anyone's head in an instant. Definitely not the kind one should direct at a noble. "I can't have someone dangerous as my daughter's tutor. Since Father said he approved, I think it should be safe, but I'll need to ask you a few questions. Is that all right?" "Fine." I'll say it again. I like beast folk. Their tails are particularly charming. The way they sway according to their emotions is a fantastic feature we humans don't possess. I've always watched their tails, ever since I was a child. After seeing them every day, I notice that the tail movements differ when they're being praised, when they find a bug they dislike in the garden, when they're being scolded, or when they're in heat. Currently, I can roughly understand the emotions of beast folk by looking at their tails. This woman named Ghislaine seemed a bit tense. Her eyes were menacing, but perhaps she was a little worried about being accepted. It was quite endearing, despite her appearance. However, this straightforward tail behaviour is typical of those who haven't undergone special training. I couldn't completely dismiss the possibility that she was a spy sent by another house. "Well, first of all, you claim to be a sword king. Is that true?" "It is." "Any proof?" When I asked, she offered her sword. "This is one of the 7 swords of the sword god, Hiromune, peaceful cour. The current sword god is known to be a collector of swords. It's particularly well known that he gives powerful swords, known as the 7 swords, to his disciples who reach the rank of Sword King and above. I see, but then it's a strange story. Why would someone of Sword King caliber be found starving in a place like this? Is there something you can't tell me? No, I was travelling, but I ran out of money. There were no available jobs, and I thought I'd hunt monsters, but there weren't any around here. I at least tried to get some water, but I got an upset stomach, and before I knew it, I couldn't move. Such stories are common among adventurers, especially for high-ranking adventurers, B rank and above. It's kind of hard for them to find work in the Azura Kingdom. In the Azura Kingdom, the kinds of jobs adventurers usually do, like monster extermination and subjugation, are almost all handled by knights or the private soldiers of local lords. The kingdom has enough military strength to station a knight even in a small frontier village. As a result, requests for adventurers, especially B rank and above, drastically decrease. There are hardly any jobs that S rank adventurers can take on. Thus, most adventurers in this country move to other countries when they reach around D rank. You'd think an S rank adventurer could manage before getting to the point of starvation. Maybe others could, but I'm only good with a sword. Seeing her tail drop limply suggested that she was telling the truth. However, if that's the case, you must be quite a foolish Sword King to nearly starve to death in this prosperous Azura Kingdom. She glared at me intensely. Judging by the movement of her tail, it seemed she found the remark offensive, but had no words to refute it. Surely no one would send a spy with such a foolish excuse. While it might be assumed that anyone with beast ears would be taken in by the Boreas family, there were more natural and less suspicious ways to infiltrate. To begin with, what brought you here? You say you're on a journey, but there's nothing of particular interest in these parts. I heard a friend lives around here. A friend? What's their name? Paul and Zenith. Paul. So you must be Ghislaine of the Fangs of the Black Wolf. That's right. This is surprising. I had heard about the Fangs of the Black Wolf from Paul. It was the name of the party he belonged to when he was an adventurer. Naturally, I had heard about the Beastfolk swordswoman who was a member. However, I also heard that they'd parted on bad terms, so it was unexpected that she would come to see him. So, did you manage to meet Paul? No, I got lost along the way. Do you mind if I ask Paul to confirm your identity? Go ahead. Her tail wagged in relief, indicating that she believed her identity would now be verified. Good grief, Paul is quite the charmer. Even the beast folk like him. It's enough to make me jealous. I see. It seems you are indeed the real Ghislaine de Doldia, the Sword King. I've been telling you that from the start. You say you'll teach swordsmanship to my daughter, but how exactly do you plan to do that? My daughter, as you can see, isn't the type to listen to people. There's nothing special about teaching swordsmanship. I'll teach her the most efficient way to move her body, train her every day, have her swing a sword every day, and repeat this until she gets it. And you think she will learn? I can't say for sure, but I promised Eris I would teach her the sword. Swordsmanship. Come to think of it, we'd never even considered teaching Eris such a thing. She's already so unruly. If she learned swordsmanship and became even more violent, it would be a disaster waiting to happen. Swordsmanship, huh? Hilda, what do you think? I turned to Hilda, who'd been silently sitting beside me. She was watching me. She's quite the jealous type, and was probably worried I might show interest in Ghislaine. Swordsmanship. That's unnecessary for a lady. However, it's not entirely irrelevant for nobles. For the nobility of the Azura Kingdom, martial arts are a form of status, but this primarily applies to men. Ladies are not typically expected to engage in such practices. Still, there are exceptions. Skilled women have been appointed as guardian knights to queens and princesses. A royal guardian knight is an honorary position among the nobility, often leading to a future role as a close advisor. Many women have served as royal guardian knights in the past. However, since the position involves dealing with royalty, impeccable manners are essential. Etiquette is one of Eris's weakest areas. What if... As I was deep in thought, Hilda murmured softly, If that child can't live as a noble and ends up cast out into the world, it would be better if she knew how to handle a sword. That remark helped me make the decision to hire Ghislaine. Now, hiring her is one thing, but can Eris even learn swordsmanship? Considering Ghislaine's skill, having her as a bodyguard for Eris would be sufficient, but since Ghislaine herself said she would teach her, it was a point of concern. I wondered if Eris would quickly reject her like the previous tutors, or if she wouldn't listen to Ghislaine, no matter how skilled she was. Eris, first take this sword and strike as you please. Really? Yeah, from the front or the back, however you like. Eris took the wooden sword and swung it around happily. When she was told she could even strike someone with it, her face lit up with a broad smile. I had a bad feeling about this. Alright, here I go. Come. At Ghislaine's curt reply, Eris ran at her without a word and swung the sword directly at her. Ghislaine blocked Eris's sword, and there was a light clinking sound. Eris seemed to enjoy the sound and the feel of it, smiling even more. But the next moment, there was a sharper clack, and Eris was sent flying. She crashed to the ground, raising a cloud of dust as she slid to a stop. Then she lifted her face, blinking in surprise. What are you doing? The opponent will strike back. Get up immediately. Come at me again and again. Got it! Eris kept charging at Ghislaine over and over, only to be thrown down each time. I almost let out a sigh. Eris hated situations where she couldn't get her way and was overpowered. At this rate, she would likely skip her swordsmanship lessons as soon as tomorrow. As I turned to leave with a bitter smile, I glanced at Eris's face. She was getting back up after being knocked down by Ghislaine, raising her sword again, only to be knocked down once more. But there was no sign of frustration or anger on her face. Instead, she had a delighted smile. She loves this, doesn't she? If it turns out Eris can't truly become a lady, I might have to summon Paul to teach her the basics of being an adventurer. With that thought, I walked away from the scene. Thomas, prepare a room for Ghislaine. Understood. And so our household gained a new swordsmanship teacher. The Ash-Covered Beast, Mushoku Tensei Anthology, Eris's Side, translated by Lucius Seneca. That day I was in the library, searching for materials on the demon god language. The Boreas family library boasts an extensive collection. As high-ranking nobles of the vast Azura kingdom, they've amassed books from all over the world. However, if asked whether I could find what I was specifically looking for, I would have to say no. Though there are books in the demon god language, they are too complex for me to understand. I can't find anything that's written in simpler terms or could serve as a textbook. I'm determined to study, but I can't help wishing Roxy were here to help. Rudeus! The library door burst open with a loud shout. One should keep quiet in the library. As I thought that, I heard heavy footsteps approaching, not bothering to be stealthy. Why aren't you answering me? My lady, please be quiet in the library. Why? You'll disturb the other guests. It's just you and me here, so it's fine. Well, that's true. Only the people of this house use this library. Sauros and Hilda rarely come here, and it's usually just Philip or Alphonse when he's been tasked with finding something for Philip. Keeping quiet in the library is just a rule from my previous world. Still, deliberately being noisy doesn't seem right either. So, what is it? Today's Ghislaine's day off. Ah. Ghislaine has a period each year when she secludes herself in her room. Philip told me it was something to do with her race. I didn't ask for details, but this is another world, so these things happen. During such times, Eris is instructed to practice by herself. She's supposed to practice her sword swings alone, but she seems to find it rather dull and has come to find me as a sparring partner. In other words, she wants to use me as a punching bag. Please spare me. But I have my own studies. Rudeus, you're weak, so you should train more. She has a point. I did decide to put effort into both swordsmanship and magic in this world, but I can't seem to get into swordsmanship. I have this nagging feeling of ineptitude, and I'm stuck in a rut. It's tough. It's disheartening when someone much stronger than you swings at you without holding back, with a big grin on their face. Although it might be excellent training, constantly being pummeled without a break can kill one's motivation. I don't plan on quitting, but getting beaten up without Ghislaine's supervision is not something I enjoy. Come on, let's go. All right. Well, I don't have much choice but to comply, or I'll get beaten up anyway. By the way, what were you reading? I was looking for some simple books to study the demon god language. Simple books? Children's picture books or adventure novels, like The Legend of Rudeus, would be ideal. Adventures? That sounds great. What kind of stories are there? Tell me. My lady never listens to my explanations, but I'm grateful that her interest has shifted from swordsmanship to stories. I won't get to study, but, well, I suppose it's fine for today. Sure, how about The Three Swordsmen and the Labyrinth? The Three Swordsmen in the Labyrinth? I know that one. My mother used to tell it to me. Tell me a different story. Oof, she's demanding. But that's fine. Since coming to the Boreas household, I've read quite a few stories and legends. My repertoire has significantly expanded. All right then. I listed a few other options, but it seems Eris knew them all. Well, that makes sense. Eris has lived in this house since birth, and she's been read stories here, so it's not surprising that she's familiar with most of the adventure tales in this library. Anything outside of that, I wouldn't know myself. The books I've read in this world are limited to what's in this library and in Paul's study. So I'm stumped. Poor Rudeus, struck down by Eris's punch. Not a happy ending, not at all. You don't know any stories I haven't heard. Rudeus, you still have a long way to go. Well, Eris isn't beating me up for this. She's basking in the glow of her victory. A happy ending, I guess. But still, it's a bit annoying to back down now. The idea of Eris thinking she knows more stories than I do doesn't sit well with someone who once owned nearly 1,000 light novels. Though I can't recall the details of those light novels well enough to narrate them. Ah, wait. There is one story I can tell. Alright, let me tell you this story. I guarantee you haven't heard it. What story? Cinderella. Surely she doesn't know this one. Or maybe there's another reincarnator spreading these stories, but who knows? I don't know it. Tell me. Certainly, my lady. With a broad smile, Eris jumped onto one of the library chairs. I followed her and sat down next to her. All right. Once upon a time, there was a very beautiful and kind girl. Sadly, her mother passed away when she was very young. Her father, feeling sorry for his motherless daughter, decided to remarry. Thus, the girl got a new mother and 2 stepsisters. However, this new mother and her stepsisters were very cruel to her. Hopefully, listening to this story will make her treat me a little better. And so, Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after. The end. Looking back, it's hard to say if Cinderella truly found happiness marrying a dim-witted prince who held a dance party to find a bride. But the story says they lived happily ever after, so no matter what anyone thinks, they must have been happy. What constitutes happiness varies from person to person. Eris pouted, looking quite displeased. However, she didn't seem angry. She'd listened to my story intently. So, what did you think? It was boring. Ouch, a brutal critique. Maybe I picked the wrong story. Eris seems to enjoy straightforward tales of good versus evil, with flashy action sequences where the villain gets defeated. Like in the story of Momotaro. I'll keep that in mind for next time. But it was a story I hadn't heard before, right? If it were me, I would have beaten up both the mother and the sisters. Of course you would. I feel sorry for any child who becomes her sibling. They'd probably get beaten up for the slightest reason, or no reason at all. If Eris clenches her fist and there's a head within reach, it gets punched. Didn't the idea of attending a royal ball appeal to you? No way. As expected, but if it were a martial arts tournament, she'd definitely want to join. I'm not sure if such events exist in the Kingdom of Azura, but if they do, Eris might have a good chance of winning. She could probably aim for the championship in a junior division. Now, that's the story over. Let's go practice swordsmanship. What? What? No, it's nothing. After all, Cinderella is just a fairy tale. It's not a long story. Only about 30 minutes had passed. Naturally, the next activity would be sword practice. Sigh. After that, I got beaten up by Eris, but I made another small step forward in my swordsmanship. I hope. That night, Eris Boreas Greyrat had a dream. Eris, this is your new mother, said her father, Philip Boreas Greyrat, introducing her to 3 women. All 3 had faces that seemed familiar. Eris couldn't remember where she'd seen them, but their faces annoyed her. Nice to meet you, Eris, the new mother said with a fawning smile. Humph. Eris snorted and turned away, displeased. Eris couldn't understand why Philip had remarried. For her, there was only one mother, Hilda. Nevertheless, a peaceful period followed. The stepmother and sisters didn't particularly bother Eris, though it irritated her to see these annoying people walking around the mansion as if they owned it. It wasn't enough to confront them. But then, one day, Miss, Lord Philip has... Her father had died. After that, the stepmother and sisters began to behave outrageously in the house. They mistreated the servants, overworked the butler, and squandered the taxes. Eris didn't know much about these things, and she was too saddened by Philip's death to care. But then an incident occurred. Eris, clean that spot. It's dirty, her eldest sister ordered. Eris glared at her. What's with that look? You're a failure as a lady, so being a maid suits you, her second sister mocked. Indeed, you lock yourself in your room every day doing nothing. The least you could do is clean, the stepmother added. Eris clenched her fists in frustration. And then she punched all 3 of them. She showed no mercy. Her fist struck the eldest sister's face, and then her abdomen, then her face again, repeatedly. When the second sister tried to intervene, she received the same treatment. Finally, the stepmother, who'd been watching her daughter being beaten in shock, was also attacked. Thus, Eris became the head of the household. It was very simple. The stepmother and sisters were weak. From that day on, they were all subdued. They realised they were caged with a wild beast. One day, a message arrived at the house. A dance party will be held at the royal castle to determine the prince's bride. All ladies who think themselves worthy should attend. The stepmother and sisters were thrilled by the news. If they married the prince, they could leave this house, and their days of living in fear of Eris would be over. Fortunately, Eris was bad at dancing, so there was no need to bring her along. With this in mind, they began their preparations secretly, hoping Eris wouldn't find out. If by some chance Eris decided she wanted to attend, they would have to take her, which would ruin their chances of impressing the prince. No sensible prince would want Eris as a sister-in-law. So the 3 of them secretly prepared, secretly changed into their dresses on the day of the party, and secretly used the carriage to leave the mansion. Of course, Eris knew all about it. The maids, grateful to be saved from the trio's tyranny, had secretly informed Eris of the truth. Nevertheless, Eris had no interest in attending the dance party. She couldn't dance, and she had no desire to. Of course, she had no more interest in a random guy called a prince than in a mosquito. So that day, Eris was practicing her sword swings alone in the courtyard at dusk. What was going through her mind, Eris herself didn't know. An inexplicable anger consumed her. She was simply in a foul mood. "Miss," someone called out to her. Eris turned her head and saw a suspicious-looking boy in a hooded robe standing there. But Eris knew at a glance that it was Rudeus. After all, it was Rudeus. "Aren't you going to dance?" At Rudeus's question, Eris shook her head. "No, I can't dance anyway." "No, miss, you can dance. You danced perfectly well at your birthday party, didn't you?" "Did I?" When she thought about it, Eris had vague memories of dancing at her birthday party, but that didn't mean she wanted to dance now. Are you okay with things as they are? I can't help it. There's no carriage or dress. That's why I prepared these, Rudeus said, pulling out a pumpkin and some mice from his cloak and twirling his staff. And lo and behold, the pumpkin turned into a golden carriage, the mice into white horses, and Eris's clothes into a crimson dress. Amazing, as expected of Rudeus. Now, go on, Eris, but be careful. This magic will only last until midnight. Make sure you're back by then. Although, I think you'll be fine, since you usually fall asleep by 10 anyway. I got it. Eris said this, but in truth she hadn't listened to a word Rudeus had said. She immediately jumped onto the carriage, kicked off the man sitting on the driver's seat, and whipped the horses. The carriage accelerated rapidly and arrived at the castle in no time. At the sparkling, dazzling castle, people dressed in glittering attire were spinning around, holding each other's hands. Eris marched straight through the crowd. There were gasps of admiration from those around her, and the men abandoned their current partners to extend their hands to Eris, asking, "Please dance with me." Of course, Eris ignored them all. She walked directly towards her target. Ahead of her, speaking with a handsome blonde man, were her stepmother and stepsisters. "Hi!" The three of them gasped in terror the moment they saw Eris. Eris walked briskly up to them and, smashed her fist into their faces. Eris, who had absolutely no interest in dancing, didn't need to explain what she wanted. She was furious with them for sneaking out without her. The three of them fell immediately. They were weak. They would never defy her again. Satisfied after hitting the ones she wanted to, Eris turned on her heel. "Oh, what a beautiful lady." But someone called out to her. It was the prince. "Please, may I have this dance?" The prince extended his hand to Eris. Eris looked at the hand for a few seconds, then extended her left hand, and slapped his hand away. Then she punched him in the face with her right hand. The prince fell to the ground like a marionette with its strings cut. In the dead silence that followed, Eris boldly left the castle, and they all lived happily ever after. Eris woke up and quickly sat up. She immediately jumped out of bed and started to run, but she stopped abruptly. For a moment, she'd forgotten what kind of dream she'd seen and what she thought she should do after seeing it. Eris thought, that was a good dream. She must have wanted to tell someone about it. With that thought, two faces instantly came to mind. As soon as they did, Eris started running again. That day was a holiday. As usual, today I was heading to the library to study the demon god language. In my previous life, I hated studying, but since coming to this world, it's not so bad. It turns out there's a huge difference in motivation between being told to do something and deciding to do it yourself. And then, for some reason, my mother died, and father brought home a new mother. Haha, Eris, even if it's just a dream, you shouldn't tell that story to Hilda. It would make her sad. Along the way, I heard Eris and Philip talking. I glanced over and saw that the daughter Philip's office was open, and inside, Eris was being pampered by Philip. A father-daughter bonding moment. I wanted to leave quickly without disturbing them, but... Rudeus! No luck. Eris's face lit up the moment she saw me. Wait right there! And with that, Eris took off running. I had a bad feeling about this and wanted to leave, but since she told me to wait, leaving now would probably mean I'd be eating nothing but mush for the next few days. So, can I wait here for a bit? I don't mind. While you're here, tell me about your progress. So, I decided to wait in Philip's office. Following Philip's request, I talked about Eris's study progress and recent activities. Philip seemed satisfied that Eris was studying seriously enough. He even mentioned, thanks to you, Eris has learned to dance. If she keeps this up, I might have to raise your salary. A very welcome comment. Then I heard loud footsteps. Eris was coming back. Rudeus! With a loud bang, the door flew open. Eris held a pumpkin in her right hand and a mouse in her left. Seeing this, I instinctively said, "It's impossible." "But Rudeus, you can use spells, right? Not just magic." "I can't do it." "Put a spell on this pumpkin and mouse. Wait!" I said I can't. Eris wasn't listening, so I ran away. In the end, I was caught and somehow managed to convince her that I couldn't perform magic spells, but until the very end, she kept complaining that Rudeus is stingy. It's nice to be trusted, but I wish she'd understand that there are things I just can't do. For the next few days, Eris seemed to dote on Philip and Hilda more than usual, and was even a bit kinder to the servants, but that's another story. She wasn't any kinder to me, so it's definitely a separate story. A Day in the Life of the Knight Stationed in Buena Village, Mushoku Tensei Season 1 Blu-ray Disc, Original Short Story 1, translated by Lucius Seneca. I wake up early in the morning, before the sun has risen. Carefully, so as not to wake Zenith sleeping beside me, I slide out of bed and stretch. I dress, take the sword that was placed by the bedside, and quickly step into the hallway. The second floor is quiet, but I can sense someone downstairs. Descending the stairs, there's a maid there. "Good morning, Lilia." "Good morning, Master." Lilia is an early riser. She wakes up at least an hour before Zenith, fetching water and lighting the fireplace to prepare for the day. Originally, she wasn't such a diligent maid. While she had the skills and would wake up earlier than Zenith, she never went beyond what was expected of a hired maid. It seemed she saw her duties purely as a job. Her work ethic changed after the cheating incident. She seems to feel responsible, showing a sort of loyalty to Zenith and Rudeus. Personally, I believe it was entirely my fault, but, well, she has her reasons too. Lilia greeted me and then returned to her tasks. Turning her back to me, she wiped the table with the water that she'd fetched. Every time she stretched out her hand, her ass stuck out. It was rather sensual. Watching her made me feel a morning urge, but I held back. Stepping outside, the chilly pre-dawn air brushed my cheeks. In the dim light before sunrise, some water droplets clung to the garden flowers, possibly from last night's rain. The ground was slightly muddy. Keeping that in mind, I drew my sword from its sheath. Ha! Exhaling briefly, I swung the sword. I went through the forms of the sword god style that I'd been taught long ago, checking each one carefully. I started training seriously after moving to this village. As an adventurer, I was constantly fighting, so formal training didn't seem necessary. Occasionally, Ghislaine would drag me out for practice or sparring, but I never trained voluntarily. Buena is a peaceful village. Being part of the Azura Kingdom, monsters rarely appear, and when they do, I can handle them easily on my own. Even bandits are a rare occurrence. If they were to operate around here, they'd probably do so closer to the city. Occasionally disputes arise between villagers, but they are mere quarrels. As the knight stationed in this village, it's my duty to settle such matters, but stopping fights between unarmed villagers is child's play compared to stopping adventurers from killing each other. This is a place where nothing poses a threat to me. A place where I can sleep until noon, laze around during the day, and hold my beloved wife at night. Such a lifestyle is possible here. So my skills are getting dull. After living in this village for a while, Ghislaine came to visit me. What she said then was, "Your skills have gotten quite rusty." Ghislaine is an absolute idiot who doesn't know how to use her brain, but when it comes to swordsmanship, she's top notch. I respect her. Hearing her say that, I thought it was seriously bad news. Of course, I could live in this village without training. I could fulfill my duties as the stationed knight. During my adventurer days, I fought and defeated numerous powerful monsters. That experience carries significant weight. That's why I feared my skills getting dull. Having relied on my sword to live, I was afraid that losing my skills would mean losing this peaceful life and my beloved family. That's why I train like this every day. It's strange, when I was a teenager, even though my masters told me to train until I got tired of hearing it, I never did. Now I do it voluntarily. That said, it's only in the past few years that I've become so dedicated to training. It's because of my son, Rudy. He's in the fortified city of Roa at the moment, learning swordsmanship from Ghislaine. He's her student. When he comes back, he might be quite skilled. As a father, I can't afford to lose to my son in swordsmanship. Someday he will surpass me, but not yet. "Dear, breakfast is ready." As I was thinking this, I heard a voice from the house. "All right, I'm coming." At some point, I was drenched in sweat, and my shirt was sticking to my skin. If Zenith is up and breakfast is ready, it means 2 hours have passed. I must have been really focused. If my former masters heard that I trained seriously for 2 hours, their eyes would pop out. "Phew. Master, here you go." When I entered the house and took off my shirt, Lilia was waiting with a bucket and cloth. Although there is no rule to wipe off sweat before meals, since I started training seriously, Lilia has been preparing to help me clean up. When I used to sleep at her dojo, I never cared about sweat and smells, and she wasn't the type to care about such things either, so Zenith probably said something to her. Thinking this, I wiped my body, changed into a prepared shirt, and sat down for breakfast. But before that, "Good morning, Norn, Aisha. Daddy's here." "Ah, Daddy, good morning." I picked up my daughters, who had recently started crawling all over the place, and greeted them. My beloved daughters are as adorable as ever today. Norn still can't speak, huh? Aisha can already talk, though. "Madam, this is normal for her age." But Rudy could already distinguish between father and mother at this age, couldn't he? Master Rudeus is exceptional. It's rare to find a child who develops so quickly. But still. Recently, we've noticed that compared to Rudeus and Aisha, Norn seems to be developing a bit slower. Zenith was worried about this. Lilia, on the other hand, firmly said that this is normal, and I agreed with her. Rudeus, well, he might not be normal for his age, but he might become more ordinary as he grows older. Don't worry about it. Differences at this age usually even out by the time they're 10. Even if she turned out to be a little less smart, she would still be my child. Unlike some nobles, I don't plan to treat only the gifted children specially. I wasn't particularly outstanding myself. Anyway, let's eat. This looks delicious. Dear, prayers first. I know. After the Millis mealtime prayer, I checked today's menu again. There was bread, bacon, and a soup with beans and potatoes. Only my plate had a large sausage on it. This has been happening more often recently. There was a time when I'd be given an empty plate with Zenith saying, "Doesn't it look delicious?" in a cold tone, but it seems she's forgiven me now. I need to eat properly to have the strength to hold my ground when necessary. So, what are you doing today? Today I'm taking some of the young villagers into the forest. There's been a report of monsters. I see. There might be injuries then. Should I wait at the clinic? I think we'll be fine, but please be on standby just in case. Leave it to me. Lilia, please take care of the children. Understood. With that conversation, I finished my meal. The Azra Kingdom has a small number of monsters, and they rarely appear in populated areas, but that doesn't mean they never show up. When they do, it's usually in the forest. The kingdom has many plains, and forests are far from human settlements. Buena Village is relatively close to a forest, so monsters appear regularly. As the station knight appointed by Philip, it's my duty to exterminate them. I usually handle it alone, but if there are too many, I get help from Laws, the hunter. Recently, some of the village's young people have expressed a desire to learn self-defense against monsters, so I've been teaching them some basic sword skills and occasionally taking them on monster hunts. Gaining actual combat experience is important. Start with one monster at a time, work in groups of 3, focus on observing the enemy's movements, and prioritise defence. Don't think about taking them down yourself. Get into the habit of carefully watching and responding to any monster. Don't worry, assault dogs only have predictable moves, so there's no need to rush. I shared the advice I heard repeatedly from a warrior who was in my old adventurer party with the young villagers. Yes. The response was somewhere between a yes and an acknowledgement. If this were my son Rudy's response, I would have sternly corrected him to say yes properly, but I have no obligation to teach these young men manners. The fact they can respond at all is good enough. There are 9 young men, forming 3 groups of 3. Grrr. In front of us, there are 5 assault dogs. The young men hold swords made by the village blacksmith, which are far from masterpieces, in their right hands. In their left hands, they hold shields made from wooden boards covered with monster hides. They glare at the assault dogs with somewhat nervous expressions. For a swordsman, a shield is unnecessary, but they're not learning formal swordsmanship. Of course, I taught them the basic way to swing a sword, but what they primarily wanted to learn was self-defense. Therefore, I focused more on teaching them how to protect themselves rather than swordsmanship itself. And the quickest and most useful tool for self-defense is a shield. In the past, I might have forced swordsmanship upon them, needlessly increasing the number of deaths. Ah! Damn it! Ishu got taken down. While there are no deaths, the actual combat itself was quite dangerous. They panic just because one of them got bitten a little. It can't be helped. Although they're used to physical labour from farming, these are people who have never held weapons in their lives. Calm down. If one person gets taken down, never overdo it. The remaining 2 should focus on protecting the injured. They've probably never truly felt a genuine intent to kill. No matter how much they say things like, "I'll kill you," or "you should die," in their usual quarrels, deep down, there's an underlying assumption that, well, they won't actually kill me, and the unspoken line of, "It ends here." Monsters don't have such restraints. In a dire situation, even begging for mercy won't work. It's only natural to be scared. For today, that's already part of the plan. First, they need to get used to the atmosphere of battle. If they focus on defense, they won't be easily defeated, and gaining that confidence is the first goal. It's crucial that they don't underestimate the monsters, so finding the right balance is tough. Hurrah! For now, I decapitated the assault dog that was attacking the group that had become panicked. The remaining 2 had lost their composure, and it seemed they could no longer fight. Ishu, are you okay? I'm fine. Alright, then stand back. No, I can still go. This much won't make me a burden. Idiot, listen up. Injured people are, by definition, burdens. Everyone else, listen up too. If someone gets hurt and can't be healed immediately, always retreat. Heal up, rest, and prepare for the next time. Got it? Against assault dogs, it's fine, but it won't be fine when it comes to Terminator boars. They're quite cunning despite their sluggish and dumb-looking appearance. It will specifically target the injured, sick, or those clearly moving slowly. So if you can't defeat it, you need to retreat quickly. I'll teach them how to retreat another time. For now, it's one step at a time. Eventually, I want to train them to the point where, even if they're not sword masters, they can at least protect their wives and children in a pinch. If these guys can become even a little bit capable in combat, it'll make things easier for me when that pinch comes. As the station knight, it's my duty to protect the villagers. However, facing a horde of monsters alone is taxing. It wears on the nerves, and if it drags on, I might lose concentration. If that happens, there's a risk of injury or even death. I can't imagine losing to these weaklings, but I've seen plenty of people die because they underestimated their opponents. Complacency is dangerous. If these guys can grow and manage to hold off a few monsters, the danger decreases significantly. Laws and I could focus more on attacking, which would allow us to eliminate threats quickly. Even if they just stand there and hold the line, it's a great help. That's something I only realised after spending some time as an adventurer. The warrior in my party was an excellent decoy. Alright, everyone's safe. Once you've had your wounds treated at the clinic, let's meet at the assembly hall to discuss what we will do next. After we dealt with the assault dogs, I made that declaration. We haven't found their nest or the leader yet. They're probably deeper in the forest. But that's enough for today. If we push ourselves too hard and can't move the next day, or worse, if someone dies because of overexertion, it's pointless. These guys may have come to hunt monsters, but they're primarily villagers who work in the fields. They're people I need to protect. With that in mind, I decided to take the injured back to the village. Yes, sir. Okay. Hearing their mixed responses of exhaustion and relief, we retreated from the forest. The clinic in Buena Village is run by an elderly man, who's the village's only healer and doctor, and an elderly woman, who's the village's only midwife. They charge for their services, but since it's vital to keep the villagers healthy, the fees are very low, and they also accept goods as payment. Having travelled to various countries and seen many towns and villages during my adventuring days, I can say this clinic is one of the most community-minded. The head of the clinic is a fairly old man, a gentle person. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say he's half senile. He receives some financial support from the Lord, and his children are already independent, so he probably has little desire for money. In peaceful times, the clinic is usually empty. 1 or 2 people a day, mostly with minor injuries, and at worst, a broken bone. Occasionally, if there's a small event in the village, the clinic might get crowded. For example, there might be a fight breaking out after the harvest festival, or some station night leading young men into the forest for monster hunting. During those times, my Zenith comes to help. The old man and old woman can't handle everything alone. Aren't you worried about your newlywed wife going to another man, even if he's an old man? Of course I worry, but I don't have the right to complain. Alright, injured folks, sit here. Hey, I want Miss Zenith to treat me. I'd like Miss Zenith to treat me too. I glared at them as they exchanged these words, and they looked away. Come on, get treated quickly, there's no time to fool around. Zenith arrives and scolds them, and they start getting treated with silly smiles on their faces. Zenith is popular among the village men. She's a hard-working beauty after all, naturally. Thinking of such a woman as my wife fills me with pride. In the past, when I expressed this, Zenith would blush and say, "I'm glad to have you as my husband too." Now she grills me for an hour, asking, "Then why did you cheat?" For Millis followers, marriage is a sacred union between one man and one woman. I genuinely regret tarnishing that. When I apologise, she gets mad, saying I don't understand women's feelings. Women's hearts are difficult to understand. Lilia secretly told me that Zenith wanted to have me all to herself, disregarding the Millis rules. I get that, but I wish she understood a man's heart when he's tempted by an attractive woman during abstinence. No, maybe it's better if she doesn't understand. Yeah, it's better if she doesn't. Why the serious face, dear? Did something happen in the forest? No, I was just thinking I want you to stay as my pure and faithful wife forever. I'd like you to be more faithful too, you know? Okay, I'll do my best. Of course, I married Zenith knowing she was a Millis follower. If she wants to have me all to herself, then I'm determined to be hers alone from now on. I'll tell her as many times as I can that I'm hers. In the future, even if a tempting woman appears during abstinence, I won't waver. I'm not confident, but I think I can do it. Since my adventurer days, I've always loved watching Zenith. She laughs heartily, hums songs, dances while cooking, has exaggerated gestures, and her unique way of speaking. All of these make her incredibly charming to me. After the incident with Lilia, she became colder to me than ever, and Zenith herself seemed depressed. She stopped smiling, humming and dancing while cooking. I feared I'd never see her joyful self again. It made me anxious. It scared me. Just recently, she's started to show me that happy side of herself again, and I was reminded of that. I've fallen in love with many women. I've slept with many women, and there are quite a few women who I thought were the best at the time. But Zenith is different to me. Once again, I realise that I don't just like her. I truly love her. What are you going to do now? Are you going back home? No, I plan to discuss our next steps with Laws. The forest feels a bit uneasy. I'll be home a little late, but I'll be back before sunset. I see. Okay. Oh, and if you come up with another reason to be late, I won't forgive you. It seems regaining trust in our love will be challenging. So, what do you think? After sending the village youths home, I asked Laws again. With this scale and frequency, I doubt it's a Terminator ball, but there's no doubt that there's a leader involved. I agree. After leaving the clinic, I took Laws to the village meeting hall. There we have maps of the village and its surroundings. We studied them together and discussed our next steps. Well, it's probably best to deal with them soon. When do you want to do it? Assault dogs are perfect practice targets for the young ones. Ideally, I'd like to wait until they're a bit more trained. But, if we wait too long and the village gets harmed, it's all for nothing. Let's go tomorrow, just the two of us. Got it. Laws is a hunter who lives on the outskirts of the village. When Zenith and I first settled in the village, he was already here, and the villagers found him a bit creepy. I was also somewhat wary of him at first, but then it was around the time Rudy was about to be born. One day, Laws came running into the village looking pale. I stood in his way to protect the villagers, but when I heard his story, I was shocked. His wife was pregnant and she'd just gone into labour. It was Laws' first time dealing with childbirth, and he didn't know what to do, so he came to get the midwife. Since Zenith was also pregnant at the time, I couldn't see it as just someone else's problem. I carried the midwife on my back, and with some of the village women, ran to Laws' house. Despite a bit of a difficult birth, the baby was delivered safely. Exhausted, Laws and I talked that night. When we talked, I realised that he was just an ordinary man. He'd been travelling all his life, but after finding a partner in the Fittua region and wanting to settle down somewhere, he heard that Buena Village needed a hunter and decided to settle here. He had such a similar story to mine, which made me feel a sense of kinship with him. Since then, I started asking for his help with my work more often, and he gradually became accepted by the village. Laws was a capable man. Having travelled for many years, he had extensive knowledge of forests and monsters, and he was skilled too. He also somewhat resembled a warrior who was once a member of my party, which made me feel a sense of familiarity. We were able to become close because we were both parents of children around the same age. We often consulted each other about our kids. Especially about Laws' daughter, Sylphiette, who was being bullied by the village brats because of her green hair. Laws had consulted me a lot about that. It was no use if I or other parents scolded the kids. They'd stop for a while, but then start again when we weren't looking. That's how brats are. They think not listening to adults or parents is cool. That's why they're called brats. I was the same. How to handle it? What to do? It's not like we could just beat up the other kids. Then Rudy came along and helped Sylphiette. When Laws told me, "Thanks to your son, my daughter smiles a lot these days," I felt proud. Well, it's not like I taught him to do that. "How's Sylphie doing lately?" I asked. "Thanks to you, she's been doing well. Her table manners have improved a lot. I never expected she'd learn etiquette. Are you sure we don't need to pay you?" "It's fine. Sylphie and Rudy might get married someday, so the women in my house are eager to help." "Marriage, huh? They're still so young. It's a bit complicated as a parent." "It's definitely early, but in a small village like this, if boys and girls of the same age are getting along, it's likely to happen eventually. Rudy and Sylphie are still young, so they probably haven't thought that far ahead, but judging by Rudy's behaviour, they might end up that way when they grow up. Well, unless Rudy finds someone better in the fortified city, or decides he doesn't want to return to this rural village, who knows what will happen. Are you okay with it? My family, which has no roots, mingling with yours?" Why make it complicated? It's just about two people who like each other getting together, living together and having kids, isn't it?" "You're right. Yeah, you're right." Laws gave a shy smile. It was a smile that hinted he had been through a lot. I won't pry, but if he ever wants to talk about it over drinks, I'll listen. "Excuse me, Dad, I heard you were here." As we were talking, Laws's pickup arrived. It was Sylphiette. Lately, she's been learning etiquette, cooking and laundry from Lilia at my house. After that, she comes to pick up Laws, and they go home together. Sometimes Laws comes to pick her up instead, but that's rare. Usually it's the other way around, but every family has its own rules. "Sorry, Paul. See you tomorrow." "Yeah." Tomorrow, we're exploring deeper into the forest. Even if it's an assault dog, my arms are itching for a fight. As I watch the setting sun, I head home. A pleasant breeze brushes against my hair and cheeks. From the edge of the road, I can smell the scent of grass. When I look in the direction opposite the setting sun, the golden wheat fields are swaying in the wind, rippling like a sea. It's such a peaceful scene. I suddenly stopped walking. For a moment, I remembered the old days. My days as an adventurer. The way back from hunting monsters on a commission or returning from labyrinths and ruins was never this calm. If I'd made a good haul, a strange excitement and sense of accomplishment would well up from deep inside me. If not, I'd be utterly exhausted, with an indescribable sense of impatience and futility. Those were fulfilling days, but I had no room to breathe. I was always dealing with some problem or another, and every commission was a life or death matter, with the constant possibility of dying any day. Those were days where, if I didn't give my all, right up to my limits, I couldn't move forward or backward. That's why there was satisfaction. I believed that was my place, and that was what I was meant to do. I'm sure that wasn't wrong, but because I had no room to breathe, I was always on edge. I thought of other adventurers, travellers and mercenaries as enemies, and I feel like I was always arguing with my party members over the most trivial things. Now it's different. Now I'm at peace. When bad things happened, I'd get upset quickly and lash out at people, leading to fights. Well, I still shout and get angry sometimes, but at least I don't lose my temper over trivial things anymore. At home, I have 2 beloved women and 2 daughters waiting for me. I can't say I'm not a bit dominated by these 2 women, but still, being with them feels comfortable. It's quite different from when I was an adventurer, but I feel fulfilled. The old me would never have imagined this. Back then, I thought being under a woman's thumb was lame and couldn't stand not being acknowledged as the superior one by her. Or maybe, when I cheated on her back then, I might have brazenly acted tough. If that had happened, Zenith probably would have left the house. If asked if I have room to breathe now, I would nod. The current me has room to breathe. There's no particular problem that needs solving, and there's no need to risk my life. I'm always living with some energy to spare. Tomorrow I'll enter the depths of the forest, but I don't need to give it my all. Unless I'm incredibly careless, I probably won't die. That's why, unlike in the past, I can appreciate that now is a good time. I can see the house. It's been about 8 years since I started living in this house. When we first started living here, I even felt a sense of discomfort calling it our home. That's how long I've been travelling. But now that discomfort has completely disappeared. It's much smaller and dirtier than the house I was born in, but it's warm and comforting. My home. I'm back. Oh, perfect timing, darling. Come here quickly. Zenith's urgent voice made my body tense up, with a flicker of caution for a moment. But I quickly relaxed. Though her voice was urgent, it sounded oddly happy. Oh, what's up? Judging that she was in a good mood, I hugged Zenith from behind as she stood in the living room, peeking over her shoulder to see what she was looking at. There, clinging to Zenith's hand, was Norn, standing with a blank look on her face, staring at me. Oh, wow. Really? She was standing. Yes, Norn was standing. You can stand now. That's amazing, Norn. It was then that I noticed Zenith's shoulders trembling slightly. I thought she might be crying, but that wasn't it. Then I remembered our conversation from this morning. Zenith had been worried about Norn's slow development. Aisha was only crawling at best. Aisha's crawling was about twice as fast as Norn's, but still, she wasn't standing yet. And now Norn, though only holding on, was standing. She stood before Aisha. "See, I told you, no need to worry." "Yes, you did," Zenith muttered softly, taking my hand around her waist and squeezing it. In response, I tightened my arms around her, holding her a bit more firmly, as if to keep her from going anywhere. "I love you, Zenith." At that, Zenith stiffened for a moment. She was probably uncertain whether to believe these words. She used to trust them without a doubt. "It's my fault." But then Zenith gripped my hand tightly and said, "I love you too, darling." Hearing that, I felt a warm sensation spreading inside my chest. Peaceful days, with little excitement and often considered dull, spent with my beloved wife, daughters, and my son as well. I vowed once more to cherish all of them.